Hello. So everyone got COVID in the house and we're bored as fuck. Let's kick this shit off. Have you been feeling sick at all?
Well, first let me fucking introduce myself, G.
Oh yeah, I forget.
I'm Simi. Yeah, I don't know. Not really. I mean, I had like a bit of a cold for a few days maybe, but I'm feeling pretty good now. Okay.
It sucks because I can't fucking go downstairs because for some reason, and kind of just stuck in this room. But I don't really care. Have my laptop. I'm chilling.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to be in here, low-key. Doesn't matter, but
Yeah, fuck it.
Alright,
When
that's
did you
cool.
start doing jiu-jitsu?
I started training when I was like 13-ish. 13,
And
3.5 years.
what interested you about it in the first place as a sport?
I just like fucking beating the shit out of people. It's fun. I mean, like I tried out my first jiu-jitsu class, and I walked in and I just saw a bunch of people rolling on the floor, and I was like, what the fuck is this bullshit? And I like saw the kickboxing people too, and I'm like, I had a black belt in Taekwondo at the time. Still, I guess I still have a black belt in Taekwondo, and I'm like, that's a little more my element, but I'm gonna try this jiu-jitsu shit out. And after class, basically, I was sparring, or the coach that I started with came up to me and he was like, yo, so how do you enjoy the class? You're going to come back? And I'm like, this jiu-jitsu shit is stupid. It's not going to actually work. Why would I do this? It's just wrestling. And he's like, okay, you could spar with my wife if you want. And his wife's just like 5'1", 105-pound lady. And I wrestled with her. She made me tap out, I think, 12 times in 5 minutes. And I was like, what the fuck? I was this really big 13-year-old. I was like, at the time, like 5'9", 180. I was a fucking big kid. She was just tossed me around like nothing. Like, damn, I'm gonna try out this shit. So I started training 2 times a day, every day, for 3.5 years. Pretty good. I mean, I'm alright.
Alright is kind of an understatement. This man could put anybody on a headlock and have them on the ground within like 15 seconds. But,
Okay.
like, what made you just want to get so good at it? Like, repetition, keep going. Keep
I have
training,
a
let's do this
fucking.
shit.
I feel like with me, like with what I've learned with a lot of addicts, it's like I have this fucking all or nothing mentality where like I'm never gonna be mediocre at something. If I'm doing something, I'm gonna do everything in my power to be the best in the world at it. I refuse to be okay. If I'm good at something, I'm just not gonna do it. And I wouldn't recommend that mindset to everybody. That's not gonna help everybody. In fact, it makes me miserable a lot of the time. But like for me, if I'm not gonna grind all day every day, I may as well just not fucking even do something. Cause like, what's the point? Why would I want to be okay?
Yeah, that's true.
I'm gonna die anyways. I don't want to be fucking mediocre. I'd rather be terrible at something than be mediocre at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fucking cool. And what kind of fights and like competitions do you do? Like, how does that shit work?
Mostly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu stuff for now. I'm probably gonna get a pro fighter, go pro in mixed martial arts sooner than later. So a lot of kickboxing fights. Done some pretty major Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitions. I won a lot. Did well. Did fucking Pan American Championships when I was 14 years old. So I'll say this: I was training for like 6 months at the time. I like recently turned 14, and there was this tournament called Pan American Championships, which is like American Nationals, and there was the 15 to 17-year-old division. There was nobody in my weight class for 14-year-olds. And I went to the tournament as this 14-year-old with people that are 17-year-olds competing. And I swept the entire division. I won really easily. I wouldn't say easily, but I submitted everybody. I won a couple matches on points, but I shredded the whole thing basically. And like that was when I started competing, and I was like, holy shit, I really enjoy this. I really enjoy the feeling of just taking somebody, another human being, and just fucking tossing them and then just fucking beating the shit out of them. It's really
That's what's
fun.
up.
I'm a nice guy though.
Just a note to everybody watching this: if you're gonna rob anyone in the entire world, just make sure it's not him, because you're gonna get your ass beat.
I'm very nice. I wouldn't hurt anybody. I don't like hurting people. Only in matches.
Also, on the topic of you, what's it like growing up like as a kid in an Orthodox Jewish household?
It's interesting. My house was really, really strict growing up, religion wise, for a long time. So I grew up in a Hasidic sect of Judaism, and I went to an ultra Orthodox elementary and middle school for most of my life for 9 years. And basically, it was so extreme that, like, kosher was kept, obviously, which is you can only select things, like, and it's very, very strict, very little that you can actually eat. Now, a lot that you can't. Shabbat, which is every Friday night to Saturday night, you don't use any electronics at all. No turning the light on, no driving, nothing. You're not even allowed to carry outside of your house. Like, you can't carry an object when you leave your house, which is really fucking annoying. There's a lot of shit. There's a lot of weird rules, and like the weirdest thing for me that I think back to is the school that I went to was so restrictive that you're not allowed to talk about anything that isn't directly related to Judaism. So I got a detention for talking about sports once. I was talking about football, and they're like, "That's not about Judaism." And I'm like,
What kind of
"Oh,
stuff is that?
yeah, it's fucking stupid. It's crazy. Organized religion is insane."
I could see that. Also, speaking on that topic of growing up in an Orthodox Jewish household, how will you explain to the viewers how going and growing up in that particular sect has affected addiction in your life?
Yeah, so I started drinking when I was 13. I was smoking when I was 12. And the first time that I ever drank was on my bar mitzvah, which is the ceremony for when you turn 13. And the sect of Judaism that I was in, the rabbis pushed you very hard to drink. So they're like Eastern Europeans, so they drank a lot of vodka and a lot of distilled alcohol that was way higher percentage than you would get in like an 80 proof vodka. It was generally something called Zetzik, which is 96%, which is crazy to give to a 13-year-old. And my first time ever drinking was at my bar mitzvah. A bunch of rabbis, we made kiddush, which is basically drink an entire cup of vodka or wine. For me, it was vodka, and I just got hammered. And every weekend, I would go to temple as a 13-year-old and just get absolutely wasted with my rabbis. That started my drinking.
Do you know why it is that they do this? Because I think most people of the world would agree. Why the fuck would you be giving super strong vodka to a 13-year-old?
It's a celebratory thing, I think. That just, like, I don't know. It's ceremonial. I have no idea.
Well, whatever happened, like what happened after you started becoming like a really bad alcohol addict? Like I've heard a little bit about how much you drank and to the extent that you were able to drink other like compared to other people.
Yeah, like with my alcoholism, like what was that like? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and like also how did that play a part in your addiction to drugs?
So I could just give a rundown on my drug use if you want. It wasn't anything too crazy. Like I wasn't like one of those guys shooting up heroin under a bridge, you know. But I started smoking weed when I was like 12, and I pretty quickly became a stoner. Like I realized I was really depressed at the time, and I kind of realized like, damn, like this shit makes me happy. And then when I started to drink, I was like, wow, not only does this make me happy, it takes away everything. And I would essentially drink a couple times throughout the week and then spend the entire Friday, Saturday, and Sunday just shit faced from the time that I was 13 until probably that whole year of eighth grade, ninth grade ish. And I was basically drinking almost every day and smoking every day. Weed was a given, and I would drink a lot, and it would basically come to the point where I would wake up in the morning sometimes and just drink a little bit before school to get me through the morning. Come home, go to jiu-jitsu training like I did every day. I never showed up to training drunk, but I would get home and I would just get hammered, wake up hungover, do it all again. And it was pretty consistent alcohol use for a long time. And then it was like that for a while, and it never really stopped until I got fully sober. I started to use a lot of Xanax and painkillers, and specifically fentanyl. I didn't know it at the time. Originally, I thought I was just using Xanax, but I found out that I was using a lot of press bars with a lot of fent.
Same here.
Like, ninth grade summertime, 10th grade time, I started to do that. I started to use those like every day. Xanax. Keep on drinking a lot, using a lot. I discovered acid at the time. I really like tripping. I would trip a lot. I would binge a lot of Molly. I would never for me, I was never the type of guy that's like, oh, I'm gonna take 1 or 2 points and or 3 points even. I'm gonna go hang out at a party and I'll vibe out and I'll come down, I'll chill, have a nice relaxing weekend. For me, it was like, no, I'm gonna buy 5 grams of Molly and I'm gonna binge it all.
That's the addict mindset.
Yeah.
You gotta do the most of the most of the most.
And that's the same mindset that I have for jiu-jitsu, which is interesting. It's the same for everything. I'm all or nothing.
It helps you in some things, but it really hinders you in others.
Yeah, and I was just I spent my entire life from 12 and a half until October 3rd, 2020, so 16, trying to do everything in my power to just be as fucked up as possible all the time. That's all I wanted. All I wanted. And I didn't care what I was using. I would use anything that you put in front of me. I use a lot of ketamine, which a lot of people don't really do. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of a side note. Yeah, and then there was a lot of telling myself I'm just going to smoke and drink. I'm just going to, maybe I'll only use bars or opioids on the weekends. I'm only going to use hydros. I'm not going to use oxys. I'm not going to use any press bars. I'm only going to use real bars. I'm not going to use any ecstasy. I'm only going to use Molly. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. A lot of trying to reason with myself. And looking back, none of it worked. I would just fall back to the same shit and overdosed a couple times. And then finally, I had a really traumatic experience happen to me that I don't really want to talk about in June of 2020. And I continued to use LSD for a long time and shrooms, knowing that it was just going to bring up the PTSD from that. And eventually on October 3rd, 2020, I had a really bad acid trip that I basically relived the entire experience for a long time. Some crazy shit went down, the cops. I had to call the cops because I thought I was dying. An ambulance came.
That's just fucking crazy.
Fucking sitting in your living room, tripping balls with the fucking paramedics jumping around, and the fucking walls are moving, and the fucking you every time you close your eyes, you have closed eye visuals, and you can't fucking concentrate. That shit is crazy. It's a fucking experience. Yeah, and then at that point, I was like, okay, I need to get sober, and I was sober for the remainder of October, and then I got sent to a wilderness program. And fucking wilderness, let me tell you, that shit is crazy. Basically, two people come, fucking massive people, come into your room at 3 in the morning. They wake you up, they're like, we're going to Utah. And I was like, and you're like, what? Where are we going? We're gonna go where? They're like, you're gonna go to Utah.
For the law, we gon' break it. If you see me run, I'm skating with a blunt that I be facing. If I'm with the bitch, she caking. My bro's down than the pavement. If we want the shit, we take it. Boy, we nutty, super saiyan.